Yeah, don't present Germany. That would be boring.
Okay, let's see if now. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I just need to put it in full screen like this. So then I'll just kick off. Just 1 second. So now it's the full screen for you, or at least as good as it can
Yes.
get. Yeah, just to start with a few words about myself. I'm born in 1970 in Lund, which is in the southern part of Sweden, and I'm living in Stockholm. So I turned 50 just a few months ago. So yeah, that's I've been living in Sweden in most of my life. A couple of years I was living in Denmark, working also for SES as I do right now. But the rest of the time I've been living or staying in Sweden. I'm married. I have 3 kids. You can see them there in the tree, at least a little bit of them. So, my background is also I have a Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering from the Royal Institute of Technology in Stockholm, and I also did an MBA in International Aviation with Concordia University in Montreal. That was back in 2003. We were finished, so it's a while ago. And from '97, I've been in SAS a number of different positions within operations mainly, and now I'm working with crew systems and analysis for all the different airlines in the SAS group, mainly the SAS Scandinavia, but also for SAS Ireland and a few other smaller airlines that we use for wet lease or having on smaller routes. And I'm trying to spend as much time as possible outdoors, but I'm not succeeding every time. But as much as possible. And I play some pedal tennis, if you know what that is. But that's been one of my hobbies for the last 5 years. So it's getting bigger and bigger, I think, in the whole world, but definitely in Sweden. Yes, that was a little bit of my background about myself. And if we go further, a little bit on Sweden and some facts about Sweden, we have a population of about 10 million people, a little bit above. The capital is Stockholm, which is roughly 1.56 million people in the greater area of Stockholm. Kroner is the currency. And you have some other information about Sweden here. I just tried to find out how big Sweden is, and then I found Sweden is about 1.3 times bigger than Germany. So it's a large country. It's not so populated, but there's at least a lot of space. And as you can see in the map in the right corner, I'm trying to show you that about 85% of the people are living in the southern part of Sweden. The rest is it's not populated at all. So if you want to have space, then you should go to northern Sweden, because you can. I think sometimes you can drive for hours and then not see one person. And yes, and 70% is covered by forest. So it's a lot of forest in the country. And I also added some of the world rankings I found on the net. So I thought it was quite funny to see that it was ranked number 1 in the Press Freedom Index. I think we have a free press in Sweden. I also named the best country for expat families to raise children. And as I'm going to provide some more facts about that, but we have it's really good to raise a family in Sweden. There's schools and daycares and everything is really good in most of the areas and all through the whole country. Yes, unemployment I also want to mention is the latest figure I saw was 9%, and it was now raising, of course, during the Corona crisis, but it has been about 4, 5, 6%, but now it's up to 9, and there's no expectation it's going to rise further, but it all depends on how this Corona situation develops. Yes, so that's a little bit on facts and background about Sweden, and then I wanted to share with you some of the Swedish foods. Probably you've been seeing or eating meatballs, but I think the proper way to eat meatballs in Sweden is with mashed potatoes and lingonberries. You need to have lingonberry jam because that's what Swedes put on almost everything you can have with lingonberries. So that's a very special food in Sweden. And also pickled herring. Herring, you eat it almost, it's 2 times a year or 3 times. It's Christmas, Easter, and Midsummer. Midsummer is the biggest holiday, or the celebration of Midsummer. That's I would say that's where all Swedes gather, and they go out and dance around this pole with leaves. It's kind of strange. I used to have some foreign visitors that found that tradition very, very strange, because you're dancing with all the kids around this midsummer pole, which I can believe feels or seems a bit strange. And also the festivities where you eat herring is Christmas and Easter. And also that's the center of the smorgasbord. I know there's 2 words or maybe 3 that are used in the English language that comes from Swedish. That smorgasbord is one, and there's also ombudsman, I think. And then that's also a German word, I guess, but that's the Swedish from the beginning. That's about the 2 words that used for the rest of the word that's from the Swedish language. And then if you go to probably most schools, like the military service, where they serve food, like they have a special food, or on Thursdays there's always pea soup and pancakes. So if you go to a normal cafeteria restaurant in Sweden on a Thursday, you're definitely going to be served pancakes and pea soup. And then in the bottom, I added some of that's more a tradition in Sweden, that you eat surströmming or fermented herring in northern Sweden in the autumn, or just in August after the summer. There is this. It tastes. It's a really strange taste, and it smells awful, but it's a tradition. And also, it's about the same time you eat crayfish in the rest of the country. You boil them, and then you eat them like with a lot of schnapps and a lot of other food as well. But it's a big party, and you eat crayfish once a year in August. You can of course eat them when you want, but that's the tradition. It was one of the in the 1940, 1950 somewhere, it was a discussion about if they were going to be able to sell alcohol, and then was this famous Swedish painter. He painted a picture that was the crayfish demands that you have schnapps to it, and then it's like ended that discussion. So that's a very famous Swedish picture with crayfish that you need to have schnapps to it. Yes, and continue. I wanted to show you some of the Swedish, maybe not so, those, probably you know all these companies, but maybe you didn't know that they are at least invented in Sweden, or started in Sweden. H&M, Scania, Volvo. Now it's not owned by Swedes, but we see it as a Swedish company still. So and Skype, Ericsson, Spotify, IKEA, of course. IKEA, I don't know if you know the abbreviation, but it's Ingvar Kamprad Elmhult Aktiebolag, which is like the company of Ingvar Kamprad. Now he's not with us anymore, but he really developed a company that's famous all over the world. So that was a little bit about Swedish companies. Then I wanted to share with you some of the other interesting facts, or some facts about Sweden. And I was mentioning it before with parental leave. In Sweden, parents are entitled to 480 days of paid parental leave based on income. Of course, to a certain limit, but still very common to take out all these 408 days, which is, I guess, in some countries seems very, very strange. And then also each parent has an exclusive right to 90 of those days. So if the father doesn't take out his 90 days, then they get frozen, or so you can't transfer those 90 days to the other parent. And then there is something called the right of public access. So if you're traveling in Sweden and you want to put up your tent, or you want to go take your boat out in the archipelago and stop somewhere, you're fully entitled to do that. You have the right to walk, cycle, ride, ski, camp on any land, except of course in people's gardens. But otherwise, it's and it's also you should also be very careful when you're out in the nature, or out in the forest or wherever, that you don't disturb or break anything, or so it's but you're fully entitled to go out and camp. Of course, it's not that you can stay for a long time, but for a few days you can camp out wherever you want, and you can also pick berries and spend time out in the forest. So that's the what they call the right to public access, or freedom to roam. Then I want to mention something about taxes. Of course, the taxes in Sweden are very high, but it's also commonly seen as we get something out of it, that and the discussion is not so much that people are negative to taxes, or it's more a discussion of what do we get out from the taxes, and we can see the connection between taxes and the well-functioning society with public service and the safety net with hospitals, daycare, schools, and all those things. Yes, and I remember I was attending a class. This was like 35 years ago, and there was an American. He was explaining for us what he thought of Sweden. He's been living in Sweden for a few years, and then he explained the word lagom. And I remember that, and I think that was a really great story, because it's lagom. It's a word that I haven't heard it in any other language. It's something when Swedes we have a tendency to think that we shouldn't have too much or too little. We need to have something in between, which is lagom. And that word, it's not translated really into any other language, but it's just the right amount. And that American, I remember he told me the story that behind this, and I also looked it up, because it's when the Vikings, when they return home from when they were having mead or drinking, gathering around the fire and drinking mead, they were sharing this between the whole team, which is called lag or laget, and then just to be sure that everyone had the right amount, or could have the same amount, or the same could have the same portion or part of the drink. They were just making sure that they just had enough to have it laget om, or to everyone, so that it was called laget om, and then this then gets merged into the word lagom, which is it's a word it's been used quite a lot in Sweden, and I think also that's related to this consensus culture that we have in Sweden. We voices our opinions, and we listen to each other, and of course this is not only good, because sometimes you have a lot of discussion and no one really decides. So sometimes you need someone from Finland or Denmark come in and have a decision, but it's good because you get everyone's opinion out, and then you're trying to take the decision based on everyone's opinion, and this is of course some everybody gets something, and not too much or not too little, but I explained, lagom. That's the way to have it in Sweden. And nobody wins and nobody loses. That's but this can be really frustrating for someone coming from another country going into meetings in Sweden, because we have a lot of meetings and there is a lot of discussions, and sometimes there really no decisions either. And for me, working in other countries, I can see that it could be really difficult for coming into Sweden.
But this is not true if, for example, Sweden is playing against Russia in ice hockey. Then there is no consensus culture.
No, there is no consensus when it comes to ice hockey. That's a different thing. Yeah, so I think that was a few facts about Sweden that could be good to understand also when we come into how we handle the COVID-19 or the Corona crisis, because it's also, we're used to have something in between. That's not 100% you need to do this. It's more discussion, and everyone's opinion should be listened to. And then I tried to put together something about, let's see. Oh no, my screen. Oh yeah. Handling and the approach of fighting the coronavirus in Sweden, and I think this has been getting a lot of attention all around the world. I was just looking the person that you now see on the television every day. He's called Anders Tegnell. He's the Swedish epidemiologist, and he's been on, I think, a few shows in the US. He's been on CNN. He's been all over. He's been known more. I think he's now not much more known than the Swedish Prime Minister. He's the guy that's put in this strategy or handling of the Corona crisis, and he's been having to defend that all over the world, I guess, and it's been interesting to see that it's living in Sweden. Comparing that during the Corona crisis has been, I would say, quite different compared to other countries. I have a lot of my co-workers and people I work with every day. They are based in Norway and Denmark, and we have meeting every day, and they describe a totally different picture, because in Denmark we couldn't even meet more than 2 people. We are allowed to have meetings up to 50 people here in Sweden, and everything is still open: schools, gyms, cafes, bars, and not so much bars maybe, but restaurants, because they have put in some restrictions. For example, you cannot be served at the bar anymore. You need to be seated down at the table. They have some parts of the schools have been closed down for children older than 16. The schools have been closed, but for younger children, everything is open. And of course, there's been a lot of focus on protecting the elders. For example, I haven't met my parents for, I think, 2 months. They were here today just picking up some things, and we were talking 15 meters apart. But so of course, it's been changes in the society, but not as much as the rest of the world. And it's also been it's more up to the individual to be responsible for keeping the social distancing guidelines, washing your hands every all the time, and stay at home if you have any symptoms. So it's been a really clear strategy. Is if you have any symptoms whatsoever, you shouldn't go to work or to school or anywhere. And they have also made it much easier to be sick, because you get paid or gets partly paid from the first day. That's a new regulation they put in place quite early. And if you see the comparison with other countries, the damage that caused by strict lockdowns, I think as I said, the Swedish approach has drawn very much interest around the world, and it also relies on having a really good healthcare system, which we have in most part. It's financed by taxes, and you could always get. They have been one step ahead on the crisis all the time. So, but of course, there's been a shortage in capacity not in capacity on the number of intensive care units but for example, for equipment in some ways, there's been but for most of the time that has been taken care of, and as far as I know now, the equipment situation and also they handle the crisis from the healthcare very, very good. And also I would have wanted to mention this that the WHO, the World Health Organization, came out last week and said that this strategy is really interesting to see now when the rest of the world are opening up. Can they learn anything from Sweden? But I also wanted to mention for the last bullet that we can see, compared to other countries close by, Finland, Norway, Denmark, there's been a lot of casualties or deaths due to the COVID-19 virus in Sweden, and that's going to be interesting to see. Was this approach or this strategy the right way to do it, or was it something that really caused this large number of deaths compared to the countries next to it? We don't know yet, but just from an economical point of view, and also from a point of view for living in Sweden, it's been, of course, it's been a crisis, but it hasn't been as much as I understand from other countries, where keeping the kids at home, not been able to go outside even for 1 hour a day or something like that. So that's a big difference here. So yes, I think that was about it. I wanted to go through with it. That was at least what I prepared. So now I would like, if you have any questions or anything, I'll try to answer them.
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much. I liked it very much, and I think for me the biggest takeaway is this. How's it called? Lagmon or Lagom?
Yeah, yes.
No, but that's a very interesting concept, because nowadays it's mostly one wins and the other are losing, and I think that's also what Sweden and Scandinavia is known all about, to have this very democratic approach and everything. And I have to admit, when I'm in Sweden, I always feel very much at home, and especially very few people on a large scale of landscape is leaving a lot of room for let the soul digest and go out. And I remember I was 12 years old when my parents went with me the very first time on vacation. That time it was very boring. There was nothing except some sheep and a lot of trees and forests and some nice lakes. But now I would say that's the best place to be, because not many people are there too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not very crowded if you compare to other countries. Yes.
I've been to north, where you didn't have any red dots on the map anymore. North of that circle, that famous polar circle this summer, right?
Yeah.
Visiting actually the birthplace of my wife, who was born in Kiruna.
Ah, okay.
Yes. In the most interesting of all places that you can get born, I believe, right? So. We went up there, and it was the first time for me in that northern part of the region. So we visited the mine, the iron ore mine. Quite fascinating, actually.
Yeah, I like Kiruna a lot. I spent almost a year there doing my military service, and that
okay.
was so I know the city very well. It's now, I don't know if you know, but just for the last few years they moved the whole city. I think that's the only place in the world they can move a whole city, just because they wanted to move the mine or start mining in other places. So then they needed to move the whole city. But it's fascinating. But it's not that funny to be there during the winter, because then you get like 10-15 minutes of sunshine during the day. The rest is really dark. So.
That's true.
Yeah.
Martin, excellent presentation. So, by the way, how do you say cheers in Swedish?
Skål.
Skål.
Yeah, I forgot my drink. It's down in the kitchen. Skål.
Skål. Yeah. So you mentioned 2/3 of Sweden is forest, right? So do you have any unique wildlife?
Yeah, we unique. I don't know. It was the most of the other countries around have the same types of animals, but we have a lot of elks or moose, which we need to hunt every year, because otherwise they grow too fast. So I think there's a lot of hunters in Sweden, just to be able to keep the number of elks at the right size. And of course we have bears and a number of wolves as well, and but not so much. But in the northern part there are a lot of reindeer, for example. There's the local these they called samer, or what it's called, they were the first inhabitants in northern Scandinavia, Samer, and they live on having reindeers. So yeah.
So everything what I just said sounds perfectly on a barbecue.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. You said that, and I have read up about some people have been critical of Sweden's approach with the COVID-19, basically keeping it open, but there is a higher number of deaths than the surroundings. You said that they will evaluate it later. Did they ever say how they will evaluate it?
No,
because you have your economic part on the one side, and then you've got your human casualty on the other side.
Yeah, I'm not sure how that's going to be done, but it's of course now we have chosen this strategy, and we have stuck to it as well. I think in the UK they was quite similar in the beginning, but then they decided in the UK to do a full lockdown. And I think the biggest problem we have here is that the virus came into the elderly homes or the elderly care, and that was really what caused all these deaths. And I think that was one of the mistake, or maybe not mistake, but that was what happened, and that really caused all these deaths, because that you can really see that's what's causing these high numbers. But I'm not sure. What I meant was also that this of course needs to be evaluated, but if you look at the number of infected, and it's been quite spread out, and this that strategy to flatten the curve, so to say, has been quite successful in Sweden. But I think the big problem is that there's been so many deaths, mainly by people above 80, and that's a big problem. I'm not. That's not really up to me to answer, but it's at least what I can read in the papers and what I can understand. So,
how many deaths?
I think it's about 3,000 now. So in total.
Well, I for one would like to say thank you. I'm actually a big Swedish fan, because firstly I love IKEA and I love the Swedish meatballs. I think it's lingonberry. You said
yes.
lingonberry?
Yeah,
and
lingonberry.
I've already had third Volvos. So I'm quite a big Volvo fan, even though I believe it's now Indian company, technically. But it's something that it's definitely on my somewhere I want to go one day list.
Yeah, you should come. You should definitely come in the period starting from now until August. It's nice the rest of the year as well, but especially now when the days are longer and the weather is nicer. So
yeah, my brother lives across the pond from you in Poland, so we can probably just pop over. Daniel was talking about ice hockey earlier. What other sports that you do play other than ice hockey, or is ice hockey a big one?
And that's one of the big one. I think that football has been, or soccer has been increasing or growing the latest year, especially due to Zlatan, because Zlatan Ibrahimovic, that's been really the front figure of Swedish football the last years. So that's a big sport as well. But it's hockey. I would say it's probably the biggest sport.
Martin, you were presenting Swedish companies. You were not naming it Swedish brands, so that's maybe the reason why Greta Thunberg is not amongst your list. But I remember very well living in my home country of Germany. There are a lot of admirers of her and her movement and so on. And then also following the news, I could see that many of these Swedish or Scandinavian travelers were giving up airplanes compared to trains. How is the situation at the moment? Is this, let's say, green activism still a very important topic, or is it somehow put a bit on hold for the time being?
Yeah, I think they are struggling to get the media focus again, because it's been no, I haven't read an article about Greta Thunberg for 2 or 3 months, and before that it was almost every day she was in front of the magazine papers. But then it's that focus going to get back. I'm sure that it's going to be back as soon as the Corona crisis is over. But it's for now. I think what's been done now, for example, for the aviation industry, that's going to be it couldn't be more done by the activists by reducing reducing the numbers as we have seen now with this whole crisis with every aircraft on the ground. So, but of course it's still a debate, but it's not at all the same focus as it was before.
So I'd like to bring up a topic that's been front and center, I think, over the last week or so around the world. And I didn't see it. I missed the first couple of minutes. I want to apologize for that. But did you speak about the Nobel Prize? And I'm talking about when you spell Nobel, not the Nobel.
Yeah. I was thinking I had one slide that I didn't include, and that was I had 4 names on it, and that was Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and it was Greta Thunberg, and it was Alfred Nobel, and it was Astrid Lindgren. That was the 4 I was thinking of mentioning as famous Swedish people, or at least people that are internationally known. But the Nobel Prize, that's been just the Nobel Prize in literature has been a huge debate the last couple of years. I don't know if you know the history about it, but it's they were not giving out the prize last year, so now they were giving out 2 prizes this year or instead. So because they have had, it's a really long story, but it's been what you can call it. There's the husband of one of the members of the Swedish Academy. The Swedish Academy has 18 members, and they are the ones that decides on the Nobel Prize in literature. And he had been telling or letting some people know about the Nobel Prize before it was presented officially, and that's been a huge thing. And and above that he's been accused of, and he's also been sentenced of having. I think it was what he was sentenced for was rape or something like that. So it's been a really disaster, and that's been a big media scandal. So I think now they have come over it, but it's been something that's been in the media for the last three years maybe.
Okay.
So yes.
Marco, you are just joining us. How about you? Marco?
Sorry, guys. Sorry. First of all, my apologies, Martin. I thought we would be starting at 7, and I had carpenter in the house. And then at 7 o'clock, I was like, okay, I think I should now start dialing in. And I was like, fuck.
Because we knew that, as you have Italian roots in your blood, we have recorded the session that you can watch it after this happy hour.
I will. I'm always interested to learn about Sweden, and I'm glad I had a sneak preview of the deck already, Martin. I'm glad you mentioned Surströmming.
Yeah.
Although I wasn't, what I didn't know was that it is only in the northern parts of Sweden. At least that's what I remember you said in the deck.
Yeah, it's of course you can have it in other parts of the world, but it comes from the northern parts, and I haven't met anyone from the southern Sweden that eats surströmming. It's only I have eaten it. I'm not doing it every year, but sometimes because my grandparents are they were from the northern Sweden, and they used to eat surströmming once a year. So that's why I'm quite familiar with the tradition. But it's if you come to the southern Sweden, no one they don't even touch it because it smells differently.
Yeah. I can't blame them, but what do you consider southern Sweden? So Stockholm is not considered southern Sweden, then is that center?
No. Yeah, you can say it's center, but geographically it's more to the southern than to the north because Sweden is so long or so far. But southern Sweden, that's Skåne. Malmö is Lund. It's in southern Sweden, and Gothenburg maybe, but that's I would say if I use the word southern Sweden when I talk about surströmming, I mean everything southern of Stockholm or Gävle even, or even higher up than that. So
yeah. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And
how is the rivalry with your Scandinavian neighbors, Finland, Denmark, Norway? Or are you one Scandinavian family?
And no, I would say it's very different in the 3 or 4 countries. I know this fairly well because the company I work for, we have people in Norway and Denmark and Sweden, and my wife comes from Finland, so I'm fairly well aware of how it works in all 4 countries. But you can say that Sweden, Norway, and Denmark have similar languages, so you can understand Danish and you can understand Norwegian, read it, but most Swedes have a problem understanding Danish. I don't, because I've been working there for so long, but we use the same words, but it's very different traditions in many things are very different. For example, midsummer, that's something that we celebrate in Sweden, but in Denmark and Norway they don't do that at all, and that's the biggest feast or celebration in Sweden. So it's quite different. And I would say that Denmark and Sweden or Danes and Swedes are quite different in how they do business and how it works in companies, and Norway is also a difference from Sweden. So there are differences. It's maybe not what you see at the first, but when you start working a bit with people from these countries, you can see that they are different. In Finland, they have a totally different language and also very, very different type of way to do business and to interact with people. But you should also understand that in Finland there's part of the population that are speaking Swedish. For example, my wife comes from that part of Sweden or Finland that speaks Swedish as their mother tongue. So that's she speaks Finnish, but it's a big proportion of the country, or not big, but maybe 5-6% of Finland are having Swedish as mother tongue. Yes.
I'm trying to remember. There was a pretty popular and famous book that stars in the southern part of Finland where there's the Swedish minority, or where there's a lot of Swedes. I'm trying to remember the book. I think it was something rock and roll.
We are recording this.
There's nothing wrong with that.
You cannot say so strong words.
We have to bleep it out.
Well, I have one question. So Finland is not considered to be part of Scandinavia. So why is that? Is Scandinavia an ethnic definition, or is that a geographical definition?
It's a peninsular, the Scandinavian peninsula, you can say. But Denmark, it's not part of it really. I'm not sure, but that's at least the explanation. But then you talk about the Nordic countries. Then it's Sweden, Norway, Denmark, and Finland. So Norden or the Nordics, that are those 4 countries. So if you want to talk about those 4 countries together, that's the Nordics.
And Nordic country doesn't include Iceland?
Yeah, that's also, Iceland is also part of Nordics, I would. But you forget them sometimes, and you also because they're so far away. So yeah.
So we were talking about sports. I think handball is very strong in Sweden, football, ice hockey, and of course the skiing is also very strong.
Yes, and that's there you see a difference between Sweden and Norway, because that's where we're really competing, and Norway always win, but we are trying to keep up with them when it comes to skiing, or what's it called in German, Langlaufen.
Exactly, yeah.
Cross-country skiing, yes.
Sweden has, with Zlatan Ibrahimovic, such a big star. I think Norway hasn't such a big star in soccer.
Oh.
But that reminds me, Martin, you have not mentioned ABBA.
No, that was also on my list of things that I was thinking of mentioning.
He's too young.
Yeah, you know, I remember. I think I saw the when they were the last thing that they did. I was still enough age to remember, but I was thinking about, because there are a few music things that comes from Sweden, of course. Now for the last 10 years, I think most of it is not so known, but this guy, I don't know if you know him, Max Martin. I think he was like he's been on the Billboard first place on the Billboard. He's a producer for 43 times. He's been doing all these different. He's producing music, and it's really, really famous. And then of course Avicii is something also with music that's quite new from Sweden. And but ABBA, of course, that's a Swedish product, or a Swedish band that's really famous.
So
Marcus, I was a bit astonished. We were talking about successful football, and suddenly an Austrian guy is raising his voice. I was confused a bit.
That's because we like to play against Sweden many times. We like to play against Sweden. We played against Sweden many times, and I think we also won quite a few times against Sweden, right? And so it's not just that, you know.
And for sure, he's going to mention 1978 soon.
No, Cordoba was Germany. That was Germany. I would have not made it in Sweden. I remember in famous 1978.
Stop the recording now.
I'm not going to take part in this conversation because we rugby players have a different view of the soccer players. So I'm just going to stay quiet.
It's better like that.
And you don't dare to say your view about soccer on a recording.
You guys know precisely what I mean. So Daniel, hopefully when we do South Africa, there's some New Zealand or English people in there. Please tell me there will be.
I can do. I have one. The head of the European region. He's a big rugby fan from England. Shall
Perfect.
I invite him?
Yes, please, because we won them in the World Cup final last year. So please, I want to start with that in my presentation.
Okay, we'll do that. But please also send me your slides beforehand, because I created now a SharePoint where we are saving all these slides for all the people who didn't qualify to be in this live session, and then we can also put it there.
Awesome.
Seven.
Yeah.
And I meanwhile.
You didn't say any word.
Oh.
That's striking me. Usually you say sometimes 1 to 3 words. Today you are so silent.
Yeah, I'm a bit hungry actually. These are the last couple of minutes for the ice breaking, so I'm a bit hungry. That's why I'm a bit silent. I have a couple of questions actually. Do you have domestic flights in Sweden right now?
Yes, we're operating 2 aircraft now in Sweden and flying between, I think Kiruna is one of the destinations, and Sundsvall, Gothenburg, we just opened, Malmö and Stockholm. So there's 2 aircraft flying and for SES, and I think it's some more, but it's if you look up in the sky, it's very rare to see an aircraft here, but I saw one today. So that's,
do you have precautions, or is it the normal way you make the flights? I mean, inside the cabin.
What, can you please repeat? I didn't hear.
Do you have additional precautions in the aircrafts?
Yeah. That's not in Sweden. At the moment, we are as a company now looking into just for SES to put in, and that's going to be in effect on Friday with middle seat free, and also for the smaller aircraft that we have other companies flying for us, for example on ATRs and on CRJ 900s, it's going to be every other seat blocked. But in Norway, they have put in this like a regulation for all flights in Norway that we need to have middle seat free for us for 6 seats abreast aircraft. So we're reducing the number of seats. And then it's also in Sweden been this additional cleaning instructions or procedures in place. So there are a few things but what we are looking for or wanting to have is that it's going to be some sort of common European regulation, because otherwise it's going to be really, really hard to handle this when things start opening up, if you have different regulations in different countries. Yeah. So there's a few things in place. But of course, there's so few people flying at the moment. I think we have a cabin factor around 30-35% or something like that.
Okay. I have 2 other questions, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
One of them, is it Hantam or H&M? How do you spell it? Or H&M?
Yeah, H&M. Yes,
it's going on in Turkey. Some people call it H&M. Some people call it Hantam. How?
It comes from because there was a men's store that was called Maurits. His name was Maurits, and then it was a women's store that was called Hennes, and then because Hennes is hers in Swedish, okay. So then it's they fusion, and then they were called Hennes and Maurits. So H&M. That's
H&M.
Yeah.
Do you call H&M?
Yeah.
Okay.
I was formerly working for Hennes and Mauritz. There I learned how to fold my shirts by standing and so on, and was a nice experience. It was in the late 80s, early 90s. In Berlin, yeah.
Mm.
The other question is about the meatballs in IKEA. There is also a rumor in Turkey. I had read some news that the meatballs are originating from Turkey. Is it true? Or is it just a rumor in Turkey?
No, I think it's true. I think that's the real background of meatballs. They come from Turkey from the beginning. I just heard that, so I cannot really confirm it, but I think that everyone looks at it as Swedish meatballs, but I think there's a story behind it that some of the kings imported it from Turkey long time ago. So I think there's at least I heard that before. So
Okay then.
And in Turkey, the meatballs originally came from Greece, of course.
Greece used to be part of Turkey.
Look, my wife is from Greece, so this is a very dangerous conversation to be had.
My wife is also from Greece, so no problem.
No, but so my father-in-law, he keeps telling me about everything originated in Greece: science, politics, culture, languages, all these things. Like the Greeks are like that. They're always so proud. And then I came to Albania, and Daniel knows this story because one evening he was part of that. I came to Albania, and I was meeting the CEO of one of our customers, and we went out for dinner, and he told me that actually the Greeks, they took everything from the Albanians: the politics, the science, the culture, languages. And I was like, oh, I cannot tell that to my father-in-law because his whole world will collapse. And the following week, I went to Serbia. And is Zoran on the call tonight? No, he's not. And then Zoran started telling us, and this is where Daniel was there as well, was that we were talking about the politics and how difficult it is in the Balkans and how there's so much love, but also so much hate on the Balkan and in former Yugoslavia and Albania. And he said, and the worst thing is the Albanians, they have everything from us. They took our culture, the science, everything that they have. So I was like, shit. So it's not the Greeks, it's not the Albanians. It's the Serbs.
It's another bleep, Daniel.
Fortunately, Corona happened because I was worrying that if I now go to Croatia or Slovenia, I walk my way up north, they will start telling me the same. Maybe eventually, Martin, you'll tell us the Danes have it from you, and then from the Danes it went to the Germans, to the Austrians, to the Slovenians, to the Croatians, to the Serbs. So everybody claims that they invented everything. So about the meatballs, I'm half Italian. I think they come from Italy, so
next time when this is not recorded, Marco, I actually have a really good story joke about the Italian / Roman and the Greek person having a discussion on who gave what to the world first. So, but I will leave that for an unrecorded meeting.
You are too shy.
No, I just know my boundaries and when I should say things or not.
So you think that would be off boundaries then?
Yes, definitely.
Well,
you think about Greek and Turkish foods. There is only one suffix to the end of the food that you pronounce in Greece. If it says jajik in Turkey, it's jajikis in Greece.
Yeah,
if it's plaki, it's plakis or some kind of that. So you put the suffix. The foods are almost the same because we have lived together around, as far as I know, 300 years. So my wife is also originally from Greece. My father-in-law comes from Bulgaria and mother-in-law comes from Greece. So they lived there for hundreds of years, and we have a mixed culture and mixed we have mixed everything. I mean, the culture, the history, the food, the beverages. You know.
Yeah. You have, but it's confusing because the ouzo in Greece is what you call raki.
That's
but
right.
Then there's also raki in Greece, but the raki in Greece is like unflavored, is really strong, is a little bit like grappa. So some of the things are very, very similar, but some of the things are really royally confusing.
But in Serbia, when I went to Serbia, they gave me raki and told me that's a Serbian thing.
Well, see, there you go. As we're going back to this problem, and Martin is probably going to tell us that. No, hang on. So this is what we've been thinking with herring.
No, I don't think we're going to take credit for raki. That's no. Okay. Yes. So, any more questions or anything else I can say about Sweden that you're
Well, Martin, thank you very much. I think that is a big premiere that you are starting to present different countries. We have 2 more presenters for the upcoming weeks because we are going to have South Africa, we are going to have Turkey, and that's awesome. And I think I learned a lot. So if I have to take one sentence of your presentation, then it is with this lagom, because that's something I didn't know. And so I have a great takeaway, and thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
And thank you. And I'd just like to say that Sweden will also be in my presentation.
Okay, good.
So everybody have a nice
good cliffhanger.
Yeah.
And
I wonder if you guys can guess it.
Again.
Yeah.
Bye.
See you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.